I've woken up feeling incredibly languid. This is the feeling I have on my what I call lackadaisical days, and they're the days where I usually spend them just getting through the day, just a bit tired, and well, not even tired because I feel like I slept well, which is weird. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I I I feel content easily, and I don't want to move out of this feeling. So they tend to be days where I avoid caffeine as well and have very simple foods, which is good because I have about 14 tins of Heinz tomato soup to get through. I have one of those mothers who, when she finds out that you like something, she just buys it in bulk. A man from upstairs came into the car park and was lighting a cigarette. So he was driving, but I thought he's probably going to be a while. So yes, so back in the day, when I happened to try blueberries once, my mother bought blueberries. I'm not the biggest fan, but still, whenever she's buying fruit from the supermarket, she always buys those little blueberries by the ton. Today, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I previously described this sensation as feeling as though I'm 3 feet above my head. Although, to be fair, I took time to actually do something to my hair today. I'm not saying I did out good to it, but I didn't just go around looking like one of the uglier Beatles, as folk kept saying to me. You try and do something to make your life easier and folk aren't happy with it. Anyway, I brought An Experiment in Love by Hilary Mantel to work. Currently reading this. It's a library book and I'm 118 pages into it. I don't know how I feel about this book. Set in 1970 and then goes back in time 7 years. And I think that Mantel is getting all of the brand names in there, and I think she's got some very good realism when it comes to what it was like for a young girl in the 1960s. There's a very telling scene where Carmel, the protagonist, I didn't tell you that, is going for the 11 plus exam and gets told by a nun there's no point her doing it because she's never going to reach that. And it reminded me of a tale my mother used to tell about her youth, where the whole reason she quit sixth form is because the teacher told her that she would never be able to make it in the field in which she wanted to work. There's a lot of brand names in here, a lot of those quintessential things that show where this was in Britain. There is a very good juxtaposition between the foods that Carmel's richer friend Julianne buys as opposed to what she and their friend Karina have to buy. It's not explicitly told, but you can tell the effects of war on these people, specifically their parents. You get a very good idea for their way of life. You understand, well, if you know Mantel's life, then you can guess how that has influenced the telling of this tale and parts of it. I don't know how I feel about it. I feel like you can tell that you can see the beginnings of the writer that Mantel is in Wolf Hall and The Mirror and the Light, in that it's very much, I'm going to tell you this story at my pace in the best way to tell this story. It's very well crafted, very thought of and meticulous, but I prefer some of the messier writing from her earlier work, even a little bit in Bring Up the Bodies, it appears. And Mantel knows how to be funny and wry. So I'm not sure how I feel about it. It could be brilliant. It could be in the middle. I don't know. However, I think that as a coming of age tale for young women in the 1970s, and a piece to show what it was like for women trying to make something for themselves in that era, when it's only 50 years ago, really, I think it says a lot. But I do just feel like this is going to be a weird day. I don't know how I've woken up feeling so languid, and just, well, today it comes with a side of hip pain which was unknown until I was descending the hill outside my house, and I'm having to park on a street away from my house because of all the cars on my street now. And the side street that was, well, I was facing the wrong way to come on the main road, so I had to hope that this one of the side streets that I usually come down wasn't closed, and then what the road that I usually travel down, well, flaming flood at the bottom of that. So I had to hot foot it down another road and turn right, and, well, it worked out in the end because I got onto the main road much faster than usual. But also, I think that loads of people I was either out incredibly early, which I think I was, because I missed a lot of traffic and made it here in 3 songs, or everyone else is avoiding the bad weather. But it was sunny when I left the house. I mean, I don't deny the last 2 days have been terrible, and on Wednesday I was just ready to, well, on Wednesday I read 2 books, 2 prize books. They're only slim. And I would have read more of this yesterday had I not had the writers group, and had I not have developed a mild obsession with 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown. Anyway, I'll see tomorrow, probably. It's Saturday, and as I said yesterday, I was in this really lackadaisical, languid mood when I got here in the morning, and weirdly, it didn't last the entire day. I admit I still did exactly what I said I was going to do and had a bit of a quiet day, but I accepted 7 banana boxes full of books, and did actually end up leaving with 7 books yesterday. Technically 9, because I got a book for my good friend Charlie Brooke, and another book for my sister, who I don't think she's going to continue this spate of reading she's got on when we'll get into the spring, summer months, but she's had me pick up a few Leanne Moriarty style thrillers for her over the last 8 weeks. So, yeah, but 7 though. 7 books. 3 of them I've had waiting on the shelf, debating bringing them home with me, and I think I'm going to do a haul at some point. These will be books that I have purchased elsewhere from the charity shop and all that fun stuff. Because technically I really need to do some inventory over what I've got on my shelves. Continue to read An Experiment in Love by Hilary Mantel, and I'm at page 166 of 250, so we'll hopefully finish this tonight or tomorrow. Still unsure how I feel about it, because the tone reminds me of Wolf Hall, and I would say that this is the beginnings of seeing that style of Wolf Hall for me, but this is Mantel's 7th novel. So, well, it says somewhere that it's her 7th novel, which I found. So Every Day is Mother's Day, we've read that. Vacant Possession, read that.
8 months in Garden Street, not read that, but have read Flood. Have a place of greater safety to read and a change of climate to read. So that's only 5. So they're saying the Giant O'Brien came before this and then this. Well, that seems a long time between novels. I'm going to look it up. But this is the first time that I'm seeing from Mantel's early career the tone that feels reminiscent of Wolf Hall. Specifically because when you look at her very first book, that's very full of gross, grotesque humour, which becomes more subtle as her books come on, as she continues to write. Completely absent from Vacant Possession. I do not like Vacant Possession, which is the sequel to that book, and don't see the need for its creation. However, in terms of An Experiment in Love, whilst I appreciate the writing style being similar to Wolf Hall, there is very little plot, and I did consider DNFing this, and I did that thing that I tend to do when I can't be sure, and that was to go to Goodreads and read reviews of this, and they all seem to be really good reviews what I was reading, and that apparently the entire slow-moving through treacle style plot of this is worth it for something that's going to happen in the final 3 pages. Hilary Mantel's not a bad writer. The prose here is particularly good and very nostalgic if you want to read about what was going on in the late 60s, early 70s for girls who were being educated. And even though she disagrees and she says we were not the girls of Slender Means, I have to say there was something reminiscent of the girls of Slender Means for me. Maybe this was a more sophisticated version of that. Maybe this is a mockery of that. Maybe this is, I don't know. It also seemed perhaps influenced by Mantel's childhood in that this character of Carmel McBain is a working class girl from Lancashire who has got an education, but in getting an education might have left her friend Karina behind. Was she ever friends with Karina? I think that that's good as well. On the back it says, as spring comes, tragedy strikes. I haven't got to spring yet. I'm not sure what the tragedy is going to be. But it's inspiring a lot of debate with myself, so perhaps that is a good thing. Either way, that's me for now. Hopefully, when I next speak to you, I will have finished this and I can talk more about it.
It's now Sunday, and it is incredibly wet and horrible outside, which means that today is going to be a day in which I sequester myself away and do nothing but read, which is a day that I've wanted to have for a while. So we're going to have a low caffeine, low energy day, and I am all about that life. I have now finished reading An Experiment in Love by Hilary Mantel, and this is not a favourite of mine. This is probably lingering around the bottom of my estimations when it comes to Mantel, alongside Vacant Possession. In the beginning of this book, Carmel, our narrator, says as, "This is not like the girls of Slender Means," referencing the Muriel Spark text. Indeed, it could just be referencing the type of woman these people were seen as, but considering it's so much like the girls of Slender Means in that we're seeing a group of women thrust together in this boarding house, it felt like too close of a connection. Anyway, I didn't like this book. That's all I can really say. This book was released in 1995, and the prose is very reminiscent of British writing at the time. And it's not really a style that I'm fond of. It's very dry, and the entire time it felt as though Hilary Mantel was trying to write for a GCSE reader who could go through this and locate all these themes and motifs that would come up towards the latter end of the book. What we have here is the tale of 3 girls from Lancashire who all end up going down south to be educated in London. We get the story of Carmel and Karina, who Carmel is kind of forced to be friends with Karina because they're both the only 2 girls who are doing the 11 plus. And then as they get older, you learn how the relationship between Carmel and Karina split, and she ended up being friends with this other girl. From the beginning, you know something has gone on between these people. But for the first 150 pages, it was just build up and scene setting to show us how these characters came to be who they were, and it felt like a depiction of life in Lancashire in the 1970s and what it was like for women, but it didn't really have it didn't really go anywhere. It just felt like, here's what happened and here's what happened, but it's like, well, this is all well and good, but I don't need all of this historical context to understand that where you are now. And it didn't add anything to the story, and it just felt uselessly padded. And then out of nowhere we had the final 80 pages where stuff finally starts happening, but it's very predictable cliche stuff that if you ever read or watched any sort of media about the late 1960s, early 70s to do with women, then you could guess that these things were going to come up. I'm not saying that this wasn't an important time for women, you know, they're still maligned in education here. We even had the discussion a few weeks ago at the writers group about how for the woman to get the pill and get birth control, she had to lie and say that she was married. I don't know, maybe it's because I know a lot about the era from the media that I've consumed, but it felt very unnecessary. Like, there was nothing here. There was some good turns of phrase, some humour. I could see where Mantel was going in terms of her writing career. I could see the trajectory of how this would go on in terms of writing style to later become the writer who created Wolf Hall. But I didn't like it. I'm going to give spoilers here. So I probably will put a caption somewhere to say how long these spoilers are going to last for. The book decides to discuss the protagonist in this, and you as the reader can see it happening, but the protagonist might not be able to, can see that Carmel has an eating disorder. It's mentioned in the first line when she says that someone is suffering from the Slimmer's disease and that the person treating them is Carmel's old friend from university. You can see that Carmel is suffering with this disease herself later on in the book when she begins to avoid food, and then things come to a head right at the end of the book. Now, this was one of the things that I feel like you often saw discussed around the time, and is something that has come up in a lot of media that I've seen related to the 1970s and late 60s, early 70s. I mention it here because I've been trying to figure out whether the fat phobia and the comments about fat people in here, which are incredibly derogatory, I've been trying to figure out whether they're supposed to come from the mind of the character or whether they are the writer's own beliefs, because it has been noted in other works. However, the opinions that are being made and the things that are being said are also things that people do say. So I don't know, considering everything else is so realistic, whether it was just a depiction of the time. But I don't know, it did at points feel unnecessary and a bit frustrating, because it was the fat character was basically being seen then less than the other characters who were there, no longer just because they were working class and from another country, but because of their weight as well. And I didn't particularly care for that. But I didn't particularly care for a lot of this book. In the beginning, I kind of liked this measured take that Mantel was having with her prose. I liked seeing how her writing had progressed. But the more it went on, the more I was like, okay, this is nice, but when are you going to get to the gist of this story? What is this about? And yesterday I'd seen I'd said about how reviewers on Goodreads had said that it's the final 3 pages where there's a twist here. I can't say as I liked the way that ended. It felt shoehorned in as a climax because it felt like Mantel didn't know where to take this story, which is weird. This feels less like an experiment in love, but like an experiment in writing. Mantel was testing whether she could see this, whether she could do this. But for me, this would probably be it didn't work for me. It also didn't feel like the tale of female friendship that it said it was going to be on the blurb, because none of these people were friends with each other. Not from the prose. They were constantly backbiting and horrible to one another. I might be liking slower reads nowadays, but at least some of the slower reads that I'm reading have a point, are going to say something. But this was exactly what I said, which was dry 1990s style prose that I don't like. And that's all I'm going to say about that. That is An Experiment in Love by Hilary Mantel, and I believe that I'm going to end this vlog here. It's a shame. I mean, I'm still going to read the Hilary Mantel's books, because out of the 8 books of Hilary Mantel's that I've read, only 9, there's one not mentioned. Out of the 9 books by Hilary Mantel that I've read, there have only been 2 that I have disliked. One I was a bit tentative about, but I liked, and maybe that's the thing about that I should accept about Mantel, is that she's very much invested in showing you even the small things that went on in a person's life. It's just that in other books of hers there's been more than just showing us the small bits of a person's life. That's all this felt like. But there you go. That was An Experiment in Love by Hilary Mantel, and not a fan. And I can return that one to the library now. This morning I did read Macbeth by Thora Sutter. I don't know. It's Icelandic. And this book was translated by Meg Matish. I can't talk about this book because it was for the Book Due Prize. But if you want to spend an hour with a book on a Sunday morning, then that exists. And I think that I might be reading Pizza Girl by Young Kyung Frazier next. Either this or another Book Due Prize book. But for now, that's me. If you have read An Experiment in Love by Hilary Mantel, or anything else by Mantel, and would like to discuss it, then please feel free to do so in the comments. I hope that you enjoyed this video, because until next time, that is all.